Hello, my name is Nathaniel Mitchell, and today I'd like to bring a presentation to you, and the presentation is The Color of Death and the Constitutionality thereof. The point of this presentation is to show you a stark contrast, a contrast of three times, three eras, three different writers from four different perspectives. And the point being, for you to be able to see as a society what the judicial system is trying to impose upon people, its own humanity, in the form of the inability to have the actual liberties that are afforded to them by the Constitution and to be denied judicial process in the United States courts of law, as well as the Supreme Courts. George Ryan, the Illinois governor, he allowed 167 death row inmates to be reduced to life sentences because he felt that the sentencing behaviors and the way that people were being sentenced were not constitutionally acceptable. So therefore we challenge the constitutionality of the death penalty. And shortly after, the Supreme Court Justice Blackmun, he also followed suit because he felt the same as Governor of Illinois George Ryan did. He felt as though too many minorities were being taken through the system and being given the sentences of murder. In fact, the Supreme Court Justice Blackmun felt that the courts were becoming perilously dangerous to having the courts commit murder based on their influences and their prejudicial systems that they were using as far as determining guilt or innocence. Now, the primary factor behind this was the minority concept. The black or African Americans were the ones that were mainly receiving the non-benefit of their constitutional rights. Of course, the type of segregation, the type of judicial jurisprudence that was being received was not only from African Americans or against African Americans, it was against Native Americans, it was against Asian Americans, it was against Hispanic Americans. However, the Bureau of Justice Statistics show that African Americans are receiving the greater benefit, if you can call it that, of the death penalty and less benefit of freedom. I would like to move a little further as we contrast that, keeping in mind that that statement and that entire segment was no more than a vision of what Hitler did by exterminating Jews, cleansing, trying to create a new race. That is the way it is now with Blackmun and Governor George Ryan. They stopped because of the cleansing attitude of society. That was during the KKK, that was during the Aryan Brotherhood, and we know that the KKK is all about race cleansing. The similarities are there. A woman, an academic scholar by the name of Helen Neville wrote a book, and it is an interdisciplinary work of art, and that book is entitled Color Blindness, Racial Ideology. That is referencing people in society and the justifications that are being used in order to determine guilt or innocence. This book was written in 2013, and it is a very good presentation of interdisciplinary works that will allow us to understand the concepts of just what the judicial system is trying to do in today's society. There was one more book that I would like to introduce to you today, and that was by Miss Michelle Alexander. Miss Michelle Alexander wrote a book by the name of the new Jim Crow. And as we know, Jim Crow was a law back in the days for which the South was on the rise. Well, Jim Crow today is what is looked at as mass incarceration. We know that, again, Hitler was about mass incarceration because it was about the internment camps right at that time. Well, the new Jim Crow is a new form of mass incarceration because that's what's being incarcerated in a mass proportion, and that is African American. Therefore, I hope that I have been able to reflect or show the contrast from the beginning to now. And mainly that contrast is representative of one thing: the color of death and the constitutionality thereof is being slighted by the scales of justice. Right now, our judicial system is seeing it's utilizing its whiteness rather than utilizing the judicial system in order to assist those who are less fortunate, those who are in poverty, those who are people of color. So therefore, as we look at the beginning to now, what we're seeing is a contrast of indignities. And those indignities need people in order to be able to create legislation that will create change. Thank you.